Also, you can attend the session on YouTube if you have any issue with your Zoom. Actually, Faraz, in compile time error, compile time array, what we do, we provide the data inside the program. So to differentiate between the program and the array elements, there is a standard procedure that we will provide the data for the array at the end of the program, and it should start with star star, then city data, and then array name. So that is the procedure. That's why we do that from 9 sequence. Also, the assignment link and our Skype group link is also mentioned in the chat, so you can access from there if you haven't joined it or you haven't got the assignment. So you can refer to that. Okay, so I think there are no more doubts here. So today we are going to have our next session, which is on DB2 in IBMI. So this session will be taken by Adarsh Kumar. So yeah, over to you, Adarsh. And at the end of the session, you can ask your queries. Adarsh, you can take over from there.
It does have this query manager, DB2 query manager. So its main purpose is for allowing us to run queries and to generate reports. It accesses the DB2 for I databases for that. So if we look for the contents that we'll be covering up today, so it will be about the special registers that we have in DB2 for I. And after that, we'll go through the simple create, alter, rename, and drop statements that we have. And after that, we'll walk through the insert, update, and delete. And I'll also walk you through this rdbdire. So this command allows us a bit more of functionalities, means it allows us to access different partitions as well. And after that, you can see in the screen, these are all we'll be covering up today. So starting off with the special registers. So DB2 has these special registers which gives the generic output of the current values for date, time or timestamp or time zone, even the server informations, the workstation name, the user ID that has been accessing the session. So these are all the special registers that you might use frequently. So how to use means how to access these registers. So first of all, to get into the interactive query screen, you have to use the command strSQL. Now this screen has different functionalities mm, made available to users as well. For example, if you take Shift F1, that is F13, it goes for services, and the services that it provides is for changing either the session attributes. If you look into that, then the select output is for one, means you can run any of the queries. It will be a select query, insert query, delete query. It will be through the one display session. If you want to use the file session, it will allow us to use a file from any select statement that has been run from that interactive screen, and you can give the name of the output file that will be generated out of the query. And the option here provides either to create a new file or to replace an existing file or create a member, add a member or replace member as such, and the authorities which will be granted to that file been created. So these are the functionalities that has been provided in the services section. Now, as you can see, there is a date separator been mentioned over here. So I'll show you in some time that if we use the special register to generate the current date, so the date call fields that will be the date, day, month, and the year will be separated by this slash symbol, as it is mentioned in this session defaults. And the time will be separated, means the hour, minute, and seconds will be separated in with the colon symbol. So this is the functionalities that has been provided for any user, so they can use this. Apart from this, there is also option 2, which prints the current session into a spool file. Here you can see you can provide the printer name that will be generated as the spool. And after that, the 3 selection 3 is used to remove all the entries from the current session. So if for example, if I'll be running any of the queries and then while exiting this strSQL screen, take F3, and here we have the same options. Either we can save the session in a source file, or we can just exit without saving. You can take option 2, or resume the session, or just cancel out the session of strSQL. So we'll take 3 and get into the screen once again. Now, to access the special registers, what you can do is you can type in values and any of the special register name. So first of all goes for a current date. Let's say we want to see the current date. So hitting enter, it will show us the current date. As you can see that I have told that the separator will be a slash symbol that has been configured in the session defaults. So the separator is the slash. Now, if you would have seen this, means observed this thing, if you access any of the special register, the column name is not something which is specified by system. It is just the values, which is the command that we are using to generate the value of the special registers. So it does not have a column name as such for this one. Now there are other special registers as well, which I've told you. First, letting us know what's the user. means which is the user that is accessing this session. So for that, you can either use just user or a session user special register for that. Both work the same. Okay, so like that, we have these special registers which I have mentioned over here. If you want to see the workstation name, you can just run this command with the values. So this is the workstation name. This is also be seen in the main screen, the system name. Okay. Now the current date and time can also be referred to as curDate function. So this will also generate the same result as you have seen through the current date, and the curTime is for the current time. Now the now function is for current timestamp, and the timestamp value has the date as well as time as well as the time zone, and also the milliseconds and microseconds. So here you can see, first of all will come the date, and then the time, then the milliseconds, and then the last four digits will be for the time. Okay. Now the time zone in separate can also be viewed if you simply put here the current time zone. It's -50000. So as you all know that the time zone is always referred to as +530, +5, or some hour and minutes. So it just uses a separator of comma and the minus symbol at the end. If it's a +1, it doesn't shows any symbol. Search for that. Now this was all about the special registers that we have. Now there are few other special registers as well, and I want you to know about that from the IBMI documentation. The next coming up next will be the create, alter, name, alter, drop tables. Now we have the tables similar as physical file in which can be created through the interactive SQL sessions. So first of all, to create a table, we have this command create table, and then the table name, which will be qualified by a library name. If not qualified by a library, then the current library will be taken into consideration. So create a table in QTemp library. Uh, we can name it as TBL, and then S, and then the column names that we want to be included in the table, the data type of the column, the length of the values that will be existing in that column, and so on. So first of all, we are using a ID column name, and then other one will be name, which will be character as well. Now we can have another one, or we can just use this as a numeric one. Now, like you have seen, while creating a DDS of a physical file, we provide the record format name. Now in this case, if we are not providing any record format name, then the record format of this table will simply be TBL. Otherwise, if we can provide the record format name by specifying a RCDFMT keyword, then a different record format name will be taken into account. Okay. Now hitting enter. No, as will not be here. So as you can see that TBL has been created in QTemp library. Going to the bottom, you can see the record format as TBLR. Now, as I have told that it is also a kind of physical file that has been created through the SQL functionality. So you can see the attribute as a PF for this table. Now for inserting records into this table, what we can do is we can use insert into and then the table name, and we'll have to use values. It's the first method where we provide the values explicitly. So since first column is a numeric one of length 10, we can give any value in a range of 10. Range of 10 means it can have 10 digits. So let's say we are just using 8 digits as of now, and the name we can provide anything. Since it's a character type, it will be enclosed with a quotes, single quote. So sample, let's say, will be the first record being inserted. Now if we want to insert multiple records into it, then we can use a comma with the same structure. Now two rows will be inserted at once. So likewise, the insert statement works. Now we also, I'll show you one more thing. Now let's suppose we have a similar table or a table structure which has few of the values inserted already. It it has few of the records already existing in that table. Let's say table T1 already has few of the records. Now to insert the record that we have from table T1, as you can see, the table T1 already has some records. Now to insert the same records from table T1 to directly into TBL table, we'll just use insert into the table name, select star from the table from where the record you want to push it into our source table. This is another method of inserting records into a table from a different table. So you can use a where condition here from where a filtered records will just be inserted into the our source table. One more thing to be consider here is that the structure of the records that have been that are going to be inserted into our source table will have to match the source table's structure. If this table T1 if it had another column, the third column, then the select star won't work since the source table just has two columns in it. So you'll have to select the column names from this another table in that case, and those selected records will get inserted into the source table. Now it's for the update of records. Okay, first let's first see what are the records that are existing in our source table. Now we have the SID as 1, 2, 2, 3, and if we need to update the SID into 4, let's say, we'll be allocating a new value to the SID where the existing SID is 2. In that case, we'll have to run this update table name, set keyword, then the column name for which we want to update. 4 will be there since the new value which we want to update is 4, where the existing SID is 2. Okay, it will update the two records which we have selected. Now you can see the values have been updated to 4. Now it was a numeric column update. Similarly, we can update the character column as well. Now, if we want to update a character column, then you'll just have to provide a single quote for the value that will be updating. Since character data type only supports to be enclosed within a single quotes only if providing explicitly. So if we'll provide a new value where the ID is 4, the name will be updated. So you can see the name has been updated to the one which we wanted. Now, what happens if we are not using a where state condition? In case if we are not using a where condition, then all of the records will get updated for that table and for the column that we want to update. It will also prompt us a warning that all of the records will get updated or deleted. And if we, after hitting enter to confirm, all of the records will have first as the name value. So this is about updating. Now we can also alter the table, any table we can alter. So for altering table, we have uh, been provided with alteration of fields or alteration of constraints, you can say, or you can alter means modifying the data type of field or modify the length of a field. So for example, if you take alter qtemp table and then hit F4, F4 will show you all the options that can be done. Alter, okay, alter table. Now it will show you all the list of the options that you can avail. So if you want to add another field, you can take 3, hit enter. It will ask you for the relevant choices, that what will be the field name. You can provide the field name to be, let's say, department. The type of the column that will be added, it can either be character, numeric, or whatever of your choice that is a requirement. Okay, and the length of the field that you want to provide will provide 10. Now here nulls have this option. It can either be a null supported column or a not null supported column. So we'll come into the concept of null and not null afterwards. Okay, for now we'll just go with what the default option has been provided, and I'll also tell you what these options mean uh, towards the closure of the session. Okay, and the CCID, what's the relevance of the CCID as well. Now for now, if we are pressing enter, have a queue. So we will be adding another column here whose name is department. If you want to see how it has affected the table, you can just query it through the table. It will show you a column which has been added, but it doesn't have any value as such by default. So this is how you add a column. If you want to just drop a column, then the same thing, you have to alter table and then table name and the news option 5 from it. You can hit F4 in the field pointer and you can select a field, take anything, any number or character, it will just select it. Okay, upon hitting enter, the column will be deleted after this prompt has been replied to. Now here there are two options, C or I. C means cancel, I means ignore. Ignore means ignoring this warning that the change of table may cause data to be lost. So I want that I want to drop the table even if the data is to be lost, then I'll just go with I, ignore this error. It will drop that column. You can see the column has been dropped. Now for an existing column, if you want to change any attributes for that, the same thing you'll have to do, take F4 and alter a field which is already there. Select the field by hitting F4 in the field uh, input type and select any of the fields that you want to change. Let's suppose I want to change the name column. And upon hitting enter, since you have selected here 1, it is by default coming up as 1. To set the field attributes, upon hitting enter, it will show you the same screen where you can change the attributes of that column. Now, if you want to change the length, you can take 5 as a new length, and upon hitting enter, it will again ask for that warning, which you can ignore, and it will be changed. The length will be changed. So anything, if there existed any value which had a length more than 5, it would have truncated. So for looking at the result set where the data truncation happens, we'll just alter this with a length of 3. Now, as you have seen that the column value had first as the value, now the data truncation will happen and it will just will have the new value as FIR. So this is the usage of alter. Now for renaming any table, what we do in our PDM is we just take 7 option against any member and just do a rename, or uh, a work, or for changing name of an object, we do a work object and then take 7 option against it to rename it. And through SQL, if you want to rename, then you'll have to take the rename keyword, rename qtemp tbl, and the to keyword. So it will rename this table from the qtemp library to any name that you will be providing here. Let's say the new name will be KL. So it will be renaming the table to KL. Now, if you want to query this, it won't work since it has already been renamed to KL. Okay. And now for dropping the table, you have this drop table statement available. Drop table qtemp KL. So this table won't exist anymore. Okay, file not found, it says. So these are the basic create, renaming, or alteration or drop statements that you have seen. Now, the next comes up is the indexes. So in the previous thing that you have seen regarding a table, so it is equivalent to a physical file. Now the indexes, similarly, the indexes are equivalent to logical files. Okay. So for that, let's create the same table. TBL1. I think TBL1 already exists. So we'll just create an index on TBL1. Let's start from qtemp TBL1. So you see here are the records. Now we'll insert few more records. Okay. Uh, 5, 6, 7. Now you'll see that this TBL1 has 5 records, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, with SID as 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we'll be creating an index. So prior to, if we are just creating an index, then we'll have to issue this command, create index, then the index name means as you create a logical file, you provide the library where it will be created. So the library should always be the same as the physical file only. So tbl1 logical, say qtemp bl1. Now in brackets, you'll mention the key fields over here. So the key field that I'm selecting for a logical is SID. If I'll hit enter, the same will be created. Okay. Now what happens is the SID is a key for this TBL1L. Now if you'll do a DSP FD over qtemp TBL1L, so by doing a page down where the access path has been mentioned, you can see the key field being mentioned here as SID. So it has a key which is SID, and if you do a DSP FD over TBL1, it doesn't have any key as such, since we have not mentioned any key field while creation of the table. Here access path description doesn't have any key mentioned. Now since the key has been mentioned but still a unique identifier is missing, so if I want to insert an SID, means the key field value, as the one which already exists, which is 7, then it will accept the value and insert the record. So to see the effect of how unique indexes work on a key, we'll just first delete this record, delete from qtemp tbl1. In where condition will specify which record to be deleted, where the SID, you can mention the name, since the name is a unique one, sample 4, and SID as this value. So first removing it, I'll just drop this index for the time being. Drop index qtemp tbl1l. Now we'll again create an index on that, means a logical, but in this time we'll be using a unique keyword here. Creating a unique index over a key, it will specify that this key field can only include a unique records, not anything other than that. So let's first see the records that we have in TBL1. Okay, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now if I try to insert the same which we have inserted previously, it will throw an error saying the duplicate key value has been specified. Also to cross check, you can do work object tbl1l, its attribute will be an lf, which has been created over tbl1. So this is the concept of index through SQL. Okay. Now the next will be a select, insert, update, delete, which you have already seen. But one more thing is, in the select statement, there is one more functionality that has been provided. If you want to select any number of records from the first, then you can specify it by using fetch keyword. Fetch first n number of rows only. Now for n, you'll have to specify a particular value. If you want to specify 2 rows only, then it will just return 2 records from the first. This is one more thing which you can use with the select statement. The rest you have already seen, how a delete works, how update works, how insert works. And if you have observed this, I am only using a qualified table name with a library, just because if there are multiple libraries existing and there are tables with the same name in multiple libraries, then the table which is there in the library being listed in the library list as first. Let's say we'll just go through the library list here. Now we have three libraries here. The first one is testlib, the second is qgpl, the third is qtemp. Now let's suppose that we have the tbl1 existing in qtemp and testlib as well. Now since the testlib is having the lowest priority, which is lowest sequence number, so if we are not qualifying the name of the table with any library name, then the tbl1 existing in testlib will get affected. So this is why we have the library list mentioned over here. So this is the significance of a library list. Okay, moving on, add rdb dir. So since we do not have any logical partition in this system of IBMI, I'll just let you know what it does. If you'll do an work rdb dir, it'll show you what are the directories, means what are the logical entries that exist, from whose database we can access the tables or physical files. Now, if there had been any logical partitioning done for which existed for this IBMI host, then we could have added it here. And for that partition, if any table has to be accessed, then the simple select would have been select star from the partition name and then the library that existed in that partition and then the table name. So in this way you can access the records from that table existing in the different partition. Since we do not have a logical partition from this, I would like you to go, means try it out in any other test system that you have so that you can know how it works. So for adding another logical partition to access the tables, you'll have to use this command add rdbdire take fo. Here you'll have to mention the database name, means the partition name that you want to provide, and the alias, the name or address. You'll have to provide the IP address of that logical partition. The type will be IP in that case, and upon pressing enter it will be added. Okay. The next one will be group by or order by clause. In SQL, you can do a group by over any columns specified in the select statement, or order by. Let's start with the order by. Okay. If you'll see the records in TBL1, so the SID is having values in an ascending manner already existing. Now what happens is in few of the cases, any field can have the sequence in haphazard way. Let's say I'll also insert here something as 1 and 2, 1, then the newly inserted records will be appearing at the end. Now if we'll do a select, you can see the newly inserted rows will appear at the end. So now to see the result where the SID column is the values to be appearing in an ascending order or a descending order, you can use an order by for that. Order by SID. By default, it always takes up as ascending. You do not have to mention anything explicitly after the column name. So it will show you in an ascending order of the values of SID. Now to see the same in a descending value, you'll have to use DESC. So the descending order of the same will appear for all the columns from that record, provided the column name mentioned in the order by clause. Okay. Now the group by. So the group by works on, means we usually use group by over the columns where the different records may have similar values. Since in this record we do not have any such column having similar values for different records, we'll first update the name. Date qtemp tbl1 set name equal to first, where SID is greater than 5. And there will be second, where SID is less than 3. So in order to use a group by for that, to see what are the set of records having similar values, we'll use group by over the name column. You'll have to mention any function over here, aggregate function. Name will be there, and apart from that we need to see the count for any particular name value, and what are the occurrences, means what are the uh, count of occurrences that it has in the records. So you can see the second value of name will have 2 occurrences. The sample 3 name value has 1 occurrence. So this is how we group records. Similarly, if you want to just see what are the records which are having just a single occurrence, so you'll have to provide a having keyword here, having, and the having always works with the aggregate function that you'll be using. Here the aggregate function is count. Okay, having count star is equal to 1. So those are having more than 1 occurrence will not appear here. Now I'll just walk you through a few of the functions that we have. Let's say we have max function, or first going through the sum function. Okay, sum of SID column qtemp tbl1. Now it will give you the sum of all the records with the values of the SID column adding up. So it gives up as 28. We'll just do a select star and see the values. All those values will add up to 28. Now upon this only the group by function works. So, now let's say I want to also check the max of the values which are existing in the SID column. So I'll just do a max of SID, and the max, the 7 value is the maximum one which is there in a record in SID column. Okay, so that's how a group by or a order by works. In the example also you can see, if we are having the records in a table as different departments, and then using a having. So having can only be used with the aggregate function that has been used in the select statement. Now the next up is the usage of is null or is not null. So we have a table date which has the records as shown in this snippet. So the concept of null comes up into play here. While creating a table, if you are specifying, we'll create another table, or we'll just alter this one. Alter table qtemp tbl1, and we'll add another field. It will be an extra. Type will be character. Length will specify as 5. Now we'll just use the null to be present in, in those records that we'll be inserting. Now it will allow us to insert a null column, means null value for this column. And if we hit enter, now if we try to insert something, insert qtemp, insert into qtemp tbl1. So for inserting null values, what you can do is you can either specify the column names here, which is SID and name. We are not inserting anything into the extra one column, and then we'll provide the values here. Values as 009. The name will be greater 9. Now, if you will just query the table, you can see a null value being present for all. Since the by default was null, so null was there for all the records, and then for the one which we inserted, it also had null since we had not inserted any value for that. If we want to insert any value for that column as well, you can either mention that column name, or you can refrain from using this total thing at all. Means if you'll not use this thing, by default all the columns will be considered for that table, and then you can just provide the value that you want to be inserted into that column as well for the record. L1. Now upon querying that table, you can see this value is there. Now the null values are different than blanks. Show you by inserting one more example here. I'll just insert blanks. So what happens is how to discriminate between, means how to differentiate what is a null and what is a blank. So for that we can use a where statement, and we can see that where extra one is equal to blank. So we'll specify this condition, and we can see that last record where the blank value exists, and other records which are having null which will not appear here. If you want to see what are the records which are having extra one field value having null, then you'll have to provide is null, where extra one is null, and you'll see all the records which are having extra one column as null. The same thing you can do by filtering out is not null. So these are the columns which are not having null values in extra one column but have a blank value. This is the difference between a null and a blank and any value other than that. Now we'll come to the concept of union. Okay. Now union only works when we'll be using two different means we want to retrieve records from two different set of tables but the same structure to be considered. Now we have a table union P. Okay, it has a status column, an ID, a name, department, phone number, and the mail ID. The same structure has been maintained for another table except P. The same structure, but the values differ. If you'll now let's observe these two records. The second and the fourth record, it is having a ID value of 3 and a 5. The name are the same, which are existing in union P. The second and the fourth record has an ID of 1 in this column union P. Now to see all the records from the table except P and union P, we'll just have to query, since those have same structure, we'll just use star here and not a particular column name. From union P, you'll have to specify a keyword union all so that all records will get retrieved. Select star from except. So all total 8 records will be displayed here, even though there are duplicates belonging to two different tables. Okay, the first record is a duplicate and it belongs to the union P table, and this record is also means these two are similar records but are existing in two different tables. So union all just extracts all of the records from both of the tables provided the structure is same. Now if I just want to see what is the name from both the records, since I've told that the structure needs to be similar, then only the output will appear. So it will show you all the name from belonging to the two different tables. If one is a name and the another one is ID, the same will also appear since the length and the data type are the same. If the length and data type differ, which is in case of, let's, if I want to use another column here, let's say ID. In this case, it asks for the number of columns being same. So since the number of columns from table 1 that we tried to extract is not consistent with the number of columns that we want to retrieve from the table 2, that's why it will throw an error. So since you have told that since I have told that the union all will extract all the records from both the tables irrespective of them being similar or not, this is not the case with union keyword. If you'll just remove the all and do a union, it will retrieve just a unique value. So in this case, since this Ayush name was similar in the other table, so it will just return you with the one occurrence of that value. And for union all, it was extracting all of the records from the first table and all of the records from the second table. So this is the difference between union and a union all. Now there is this keyword except. So except is used just to fetch which are the unmatching record sets from two tables. I'll show you the record sets from the table 1. First of all, it is having this record set where the ID, I've told only the difference is the ID number of the second and the fourth record in both the tables. Okay, so while we do accept, since these are the unmatching data sets, so it takes into consideration the whole of the data set rather than any column. Okay, so it will match against a data set which is there. We'll do an except for our table union P. So it checks condition based on the data set, means the combination of all the columns. So these are the unmatching ones. That's why those has been retrieved. And the matching ones were not retrieved, which was having ID as 1. And similarly, intersect will do the opposite, which is it will just display you the similar data sets in both the tables. Since both of the tables had these records as a similar data set is in the considering all of the column values. That's why those have been retrieved. So this was about union all, except and intersect. Now coming up, as I've told you, these are the aggregate functions. So what happens is these operate against a set of rows in a column. and return a single row. Means for all of the records, it will check for all of the records and will return a single data set. However, the scalar functions work differently. The scalar functions act upon a single record, and for those records, it will provide you with the result set. For example, if we have records from qtemp tbl1 as given. Now, if we just want to see what are the name in uppercase, then we'll be using the upper scalar function. So for all the records, it will act and it will return rows for all those records. So this is the only difference between a scalar and an aggregate function. If you want to see the length, it will show you the length of the entire column. However, if you just want to see the value, means length of the values, then you'll have to trim it. So it will show you what is the length of the value that are existing. Also, for determining if it really is returning is the same thing that we need as a result set, you can use the comparing column as well. So you can see the length will be 6, the length will be 5 for this one, and so on. And after that, we have for means for modifying a data type uh, in a select query, we have this few functions mentioned. Means it has been provided in a DB2 just for the purpose that we'll have we can just select it entirely and just insert it into a given table. Let's say we have a requirement that we have our source table column as a numeric and we need to insert something from another table which has a numeric value but is a character type. So in that case, we'll have to explicitly convert that by using a casting functions. So for casting functions, few of them are direct. As you can see, there is a character functions which converts any numeric data type into a character type, or a decimal function which converts numeric values existing in a character data type into a decimal type, or an int function which is similar as decimal. However, the decimal floating points will not be there in int type, and same, and it goes on. But there is one function which is cast, and within cast you can uh, use these functions as well, the standalone ones, the character, decimal, or int or date. So for that, I'll just use this tbl table, tbl1. Okay, qtemp select star from tbl1. Now here our sid is a numeric one. In order to convert it into a character data type, so by using this char function over a numeric data type column, we'll convert into a character type. As you can see, now for converting into a decimal type, the same can be done. SID with float. So we'll be converting the same numeric into a decimal with one scale. However, we just have a value of one length. It's just showing that value, nothing else. The same could be done using a cast function, as I've told. Now in cast function, you'll have to mention here the column name as either a character type of length 10, let's say, then it will cast it into a character type. Now, one advantage of this cast function over the other explicit conversions is the cast function can also convert the CCSID of a column. For example, there is one system table that exists, which is syscolumns. Okay, where table name, table schema, test lib. So we'll look up for all the columns that are existing in any of the tables that exist within the library test lib. So here we have one column which is column text. It says, we'll just directly select it, character column text. So in the system columns, there are values which exist in with a CCS ID, which is other than the readable format, or you can see English literals. And the CCID of the English literals is 37. However, these are having a different CCS ID for the values that are existing. Now, to explicitly change it into a character type and change the CCS ID as well, we'll have to do a cast function over it as character, the length that you can specify, and then CCSID and the value of the CCSID that you want to use it. Now it will show you a readable format of that. So this is the only advantage of a cast function over the other functions to modify the data type. Now coming over to if null or coalesce. Now these are the conditions that are not being used under a where condition, rather these are used in the selection of fields. Okay, and by that I mean let's say we have that table date p. As you can see here, these are the columns in the date p field which are having few of the field value as null, and the other ones are having values. So we'll first, if you write a select statement, take F4, you can see these are the segregated options that you can use from for a where conditioning or a group by fields or having or any update of fields. So by taking F4 over the select fields, we can see the column names that are in that table. Now we have seen that the first column is having all the values. The next column, the second column, is having value in the last record only, which is the fourth record, and so on. So the if null will only act, or coalesce will only act upon the selection of the columns, as I've told. Since we've copied the column names, so I'll just show you what's the usage of it. Okay, next DT1. Now it just uh, tells us that if the first column mentioned over here is a null, is having a null value, then it will display the value over here. So it's kind of a conditioning, but comes along with the select part of the table. Since it's a date format type, I'll just use a date D0101 date P. If the second column is not having any value, it will display the date as 2020-0101. So the second column, it had null values for the first three records. So it shows the date as 2020-0101, and the last record was having a value, valid value, which was not null. That's why the value was appearing here. Now the difference between coalesce and if null is you can only have one column specified for comparison if it's a null or not. While in coalesce, you can use multiple columns for checking. For example, I'll use the same statement and I'll use a coalesce function. First column, it will check the first column. Uh, it will check the second column from the table being specified as the first argument of the function. Then I'll check the next column if it has a null value or a valid value. Then the third column will be checked if it's having a valid value or a null. And then the last one. We are having 4 or 5. So by this, it means that if the first argument column mentioned over here is having a null value, it will display the value for the second argument column. If the second argument column is also having a null, then it will go on and check for the third argument column. If the third is having a null value in it for a record, then it will check for the next argument column, and then the next, and at the end you can specify your own value that will be displayed if all of the argument columns specified over this coalesce function is having null values. Okay, now if we try to check the data, we'll also see what the exact data is from the table. So the coalesce function returns this value. It first checked for this column, the next date one. It couldn't find anything. It checked for the next one. It couldn't find anything. The next, it couldn't find anything. And when checking upon this column, it found a value, valid value. So it returned this value in the first column, you can see. And the same happened for all the records. For the last record, it found a value in the first column itself, the first argument column, and hence it returned the value for that. So this is the only difference between a coalesce and a if null function. Now we have the case expressions. So we'll be using this case expression from TBL1. Okay. Now we have this SID value, and we'll be using the case expression upon it, that if an SID value is having any value which is upon the value name, then we'll display something against that, which comes as the syntax says case when the condition of the value in a column, which we'll use as SID, is equal to 1, and comes the then keyword and the value that we want to put up there. Display a first here, and then we can use subsequent conditions over here by mentioning a when keyword when the SID will be equal to 2. Then we'll display second, and you can mention other conditions here. At the end, we have this option else. Else you can just show the result set, means the value which exists in the SID column. And then the SID column itself as a different column, and the name column. And so you can see wherever the SID was having a value of 1, we were displaying first as the value. If it's a second, then we are showing second as a value. For the rest, it would display as is in the SID column. So the syntax is first keyword is case, and then the condition comes within a when, and then the then keyword appears and the value which is displayed, which we want to display, and at the end keyword appears, and this is how the case expression works. Now we'll come up to the subqueries. Subqueries are nothing but variable, means you can say these are some set of data, means subset of data retrieved from another table, being based on any condition. Okay, let's say we'll just query for qtemp tbl1. Since this returns a data set to us, we can use this data set for checking a condition in another query. So we can have this as a subquery, means a query inside a query. Now we'll just write for a parent query for that, from qtemp tbl1. Since we just have one, we are using just one table, so I'll just use a where condition over here, where sid is equal to max of sid. Okay, now what happens is, if you try to break it out, you'll see the value that it returns is 9 from tbl1. Now if you want to check anything from tbl1 which is having a max of sid value from any table, then the query as I have written over here. So what it will do is, it will first of all select all the data set, means all the records from tbl1, and then check for the condition where the sid column is having value as max of sid from the same table. So it retrieved this data set. That's how subqueries work. Now with subqueries, there also comes a where exist function. And whenever where exist work, the keyword we use is exists. Now in case of using an exists, we'll have to use the condition from the subquery itself, where, and here you can mention select star, where sid is equal to 9. So it will check for the records which are having uh, an SID value of 9 from another table. If it exists, then it will return, otherwise it will not return anything. For where exist, we have this where exist content in the next session, so I'll tell you about it with different tables. Okay, so for the basic concepts, so this was the contents to cover it. Now what I want you to do is just go through these once again, and if possible you can also Google it or try to read through a documentation of IBM, which I'll also share so that you can know more about them. Okay.
Thank you, Adarsh, for your session. If anybody have any kind of doubt, they just raise your hand, and then we can unmute themselves and they can ask the questions. Actually, we are already on time, so yes, ask the question. Okay, I think we don't have any queries. So in the meantime, what you can do, you can just revise all the things that were taught in today's session and try to learn it from Google itself, and try to cover all the concept that was related to the DB2 and SQL. And the next session will be also of DB2, and it will be a advanced session. So try to complete all the things that you have been taught today, and we will meet in next session. So till then, bye.